This story is about to reveal a secret hidden in plain sight, a dark truth concealed behind the glorious legend of England's greatest king. Imagine a warrior king, a man hailed as a divine savior who single-handedly forged a nation from the ashes of Viking raids. Now imagine that same man writhing in silent agony, consumed by a hidden enemy far more relentless than any Viking horde. This is the story of Alfred the Great, the hero who conquered invaders but was slowly, agonizingly destroyed by his own body. Before we begin this journey, a quick word. If you're a fan of history's most shocking secrets, hit that subscribe button right now. Ring the notification bell and drop a comment below telling me what historical figure you want us to explore next. Picture this. The year is 849. Wantage, a rugged outpost in the Kingdom of Wessex, where Viking longships prowl the seas like wolves, their dragon prows slicing through fog to bring fire and death to Anglo-Saxon shores. Into this crucible of chaos is born Alfred, the youngest son of Wessex's king and queen. With 3 elder brothers poised to claim the throne, this frail boy, pale and often unwell, is dismissed as an afterthought. Yet, this overlooked prince would rise as Alfred the Great, the warrior king who forged England from blood and iron, defying Viking hordes and a body that would betray him with relentless torment. Even as a child, Alfred's mind blazed like a beacon in the Dark Ages. In 853, at just 4 years old, he was sent by his father on a grand journey to Rome, escorted through perilous roads to kneel in the golden splendor of St. Peter's Basilica. There, the Pope anointed him with holy oil, naming him consul in a ceremony later spun into a legend of a crowning. Back home, his mother, a wise queen, ignited his thirst for knowledge with a challenge: memorize a book of Anglo-Saxon poetry to claim it as a prize. Unable to read, Alfred outsmarted his brothers, having a tutor recite the verses while he etched them into his prodigious memory. His flawless recitation won the book, revealing a mind sharper than any blade. By 12, Alfred taught himself to read, mastering Latin with a hunger that awed monks. He later translated sacred texts, works of great theologians, into Old English, sharing wisdom with a kingdom where few could read. His memory was uncanny. He recalled the faces and stories of thousands, nobles, warriors, even peasants, greeting them by name in bustling halls or muddy camps. Scribes marveled at his godlike recall, noting how he quoted holy verses or battle plans years later without a misstep. Alfred was no mere bookworm. Despite his slight frame, he hunted boar through gnarled forests, his bow steady, outpacing seasoned riders for hours. His voice, deep and commanding, rallied men across foggy battlefields from 200 yards away. His blue eyes, blazing like stars, held warriors spellbound, while his poetry roared with Saxon grit and divine grace, moved hardened lords to tears at feasts. Women at court whispered of his quiet charm, a magnetism that needed no crown to command devotion. In 871, at 22, Alfred's courage roared at the Battle of Ashdown. With his brother the king faltering in prayer, Alfred led a desperate charge against a Viking shield wall on Berkshire's chalk hills. Axes clashed, blood stained the earth, and his cunning strategy broke the Danes, saving Wessex from ruin. When his brother died soon after, Alfred was crowned at 23 in Winchester's torchlit hall, swearing on ancient relics to shield his people. His zenith came in 878 at Edington. After surviving a brutal Viking raid, forced him into hiding in Athelney marshes, a swampy wetland in Somerset, where legends say he disguised himself as a peasant and accidentally burned some cakes. Alfred rose like a storm. Rallying a tattered army, he marched through swampy mists, his will unbroken despite whispers of pain. At Edington, his forces shattered the Viking army. Their leader knelt, was baptized, and signed a treaty splitting England, cementing Alfred's rule over the south. This was no mere victory, it was a divine mandate. Alfred reshaped his kingdom, launching England's first navy with 60 ships, building fortified towns called burhs, walled settlements designed for defense and trade like early cities, and crafting a law code blending biblical justice with Saxon honor known as the Doom Book, a compilation of laws emphasizing fairness and royal authority. He founded schools, demanding every freeborn boy learn to read. Foreign envoys hailed him as England's darling, awed by a king who hunted by day, studied by night, and penned hymns that echoed in monasteries. Nobles vied to serve him in grand ceremonies, his presence filling halls with reverence. Yet even in this golden age, shadows crept in. At his 868 wedding to a Mercian noblewoman, a high-born lady from the neighboring kingdom of Mercia, strengthening political ties, Alfred winced through feasts, brushing off abdominal pangs as mere indigestion. He prayed fiercely, seeing weakness as a divine test, and hid his discomfort with a warrior's grit. None could fathom that this fleeting ache would unleash a torment to rival his Viking foes. Yet for all his victories over foreign foes, Alfred faced an enemy far more insidious than any Viking horde. This enemy struck without warning, showed no mercy, and could not be defeated by sword or strategy. It would shadow him for 3 decades, hiding behind every public triumph. The attack began on what should have been his happiest night. The year is 868, and the halls of Winchester echo with the clamor of celebration. Alfred, now a young prince of 19, has just wed a noblewoman from the neighboring kingdom of Mercia, sealing an alliance that promises to strengthen Wessex against the ever-looming Viking threat. The feast is lavish. Tables groan under roasted boar, honeyed mead flows like rivers, and minstrels strum harps, singing of future glories. Alfred, resplendent in an embroidered tunic and golden arm rings, dances with his bride under flickering torchlight, his laughter ringing clear. But as the night deepens and the revelers retire, a shadow descends. In the privacy of the bridal chamber, Alfred collapses, clutching his abdomen as if stabbed by an invisible blade. What begins as a sharp twinge explodes into agony, a burning, twisting pain that radiates from his gut like fire through dry thatch. Servants rush in, their faces pale with alarm, but Alfred waves them away, gritting his teeth. "It is nothing," he mutters, "a passing ill from the feast." Little does he know, this is no fleeting discomfort. This is the dawn of a lifelong torment, a silent siege that no fortress wall could repel. The pain strikes without warning, a cruel ambush in the midst of joy. Chroniclers later recorded as starting that very night, a sudden affliction that leaves Alfred writhing on his bed, sweat beading his brow despite the chill autumn air. The sensations are overwhelming, severe cramps that seize his bowels like iron vices, twisting and squeezing until he gasps for breath. His digestive system rebels completely, forcing him to retreat from public view during the worst episodes. He strains for relief, his body betraying him with waves of nausea that empty his stomach of the feast's remnants. The pain migrates downward, settling in his lower regions, a burning discomfort that swells into painful lesions, making every movement, every attempt to sit or stand, a fresh trial. The wounds become infected and refuse to heal, forcing him to take measures to conceal his condition from the court. Nights become endless ordeals. Sleep eludes him as the agony pulses, ebbing only to surge anew, leaving him weak and trembling by dawn. In an era where medicine blends superstition with crude remedies, Alfred's affliction baffles all. Whispers spread through the court. Some blame dark sorcery, a curse from Viking shamans envious of his rising star. Others murmur of demonic possession, the devil twisting his innards as punishment for some hidden sin. Physicians, drawing from ancient texts, diagnose it as piles, hemorrhoids swollen by royal excess, or perhaps a humoral imbalance, where black bile overwhelms the body's harmony. No one dares suggest it might stem from a deeper rot, an inflammation gnawing at his very core. Modern experts peering back through centuries point to Crohn's disease, a relentless autoimmune assault on the digestive tract, where the body's defenses turn inward, inflaming intestines into scarred, ulcerated ruins. Untreatable in the 9th century, it explains the cycles of flare-ups, remissions of deceptive calm, shattered by brutal relapses. Left unchecked, it could lead to perforations, sepsis, and a slow death, all while sapping strength from even the mightiest warrior. Desperate for relief, Alfred turns to the healers of his time. Their cures, a parade of barbarity, masked as wisdom. From the ancient medical tome known as the Bald's Leech Book, a compendium of Anglo-Saxon remedies compiled under his own reign, come compositions of fennel seeds, boiled in wine, meant to soothe the inward tenderness. Licorice root and herbs steeped in ale are forced down his throat, bitter brews that promise to ease his condition, but often worsen the symptoms, leaving him dehydrated and frail. For the external symptoms, salves of various herbs mixed with oils are applied, offering fleeting relief, before the discomfort returns with vengeance. Envoys from distant lands bring exotic remedies. A patriarch from the Holy Land sends elixirs of crushed pearls dissolved in wine, touted as miracles for strange griefs. Alfred submits to them all, enduring the bitter tastes and uncomfortable applications. His royal dignity, stripped in private chambers where servants avert their eyes. But these treatments are futile, often making matters worse. Bloodletting follows. Leeches latch to his arms and legs to purify corrupted humors, draining vital fluids until he sways with dizziness. Hot irons are pressed to his skin in cautery attempts, searing flesh to burn out the evil, filling the room with the stench of charred meat. As Alfred bites down on leather straps to stifle screams, the pain intensifies, spreading upward to his stomach, where it feels like constant gnawing from within. He loses weight rapidly, his once athletic frame hollowing out, cheeks sinking, and eyes shadowing with exhaustion. Yet through it all, Alfred clings to faith. He prays incessantly, prostrating before altars in Winchester's Minster, begging God to lighten his burden. In his view, this suffering is a divine trial, a scourge to temper his soul, like iron in a forge. If this be thy will, he whispers in the dead of night, grant me strength to bear it. He fears not just the pain, but its shadow on his leadership. How can a king who suffers in secret command armies against Vikings? The affliction's toll is profound, a private war waged amid public triumphs. During council meetings, Alfred masks winces behind stern nods, excusing himself to chambers where he collapses in solitude. Hunts become ordeals. The jolt of horseback riding aggravates his condition, forcing him to dismount early under pretext of strategy. Feasts turn treacherous, rich foods triggering episodes that leave him bedridden for days. Rumors swirl, courtiers gossip of the king's mysterious malady, some pitying, others scheming to exploit perceived weakness. Foreign spies note his pallor, wondering if Wessex's shield is cracking. Yet Alfred endures, his iron will forging ahead. He channels the suffering into resolve, using quiet hours of recovery to ponder reforms, laws, schools, and defenses that will define his legacy. By his mid-30s, as he ascends the throne, The disease has woven itself into his life, a constant companion, more insidious than any Viking axe. Remissions bring hope, periods where he hunts and plans with vigor, fooling even himself that the curse has lifted. But flares return, each bringing fresh challenges, eroding his body bit by bit. What started as a wedding night attack has become a chronic siege, one that no remedy can breach. And as the years grind on, this hidden decay begins to reshape not just his flesh, but the very man beneath the crown. That wedding night attack was just the beginning. What Alfred dismissed as a passing ill would evolve into something far more sinister. Over the next decade, as Vikings learned to fear his name, Alfred would learn to fear something else entirely, the unpredictable enemy within. By the 870s, the true scope of his hidden war would become clear. As Alfred's reign solidified with hard-won victories over the Vikings, the affliction that struck on his wedding night had evolved into something far more insidious. A chronic predator lurking within, sapping his strength, while the world saw only the unbreakable king. What began as sporadic episodes of pain now wove itself into the fabric of his daily life, transforming the once vigorous warrior into a man whose body was slowly deteriorating. The disease, likely Crohn's in modern terms, flared unpredictably. Weeks of relative calm, shattered by days of debilitating symptoms that left him confined to his chambers, doubled over on straw mattresses, his frame wasting away. He grew gaunt, his cheeks hollowing like carved wood, ribs protruding under his tunic as poor nutrition gnawed at him. Constant digestive distress and internal bleeding drained his vitality, turning a king who once outran hunters into one who struggled to mount a horse without discomfort. Fatigue became his constant shadow, an exhaustion so profound it felt like lead in his limbs, forcing him to rest in hidden alcoves during long councils. Yet outwardly, he projected unyielding strength, his blue eyes still flashing with command, masking the deterioration beneath. The irony was staggering. Alfred, the savior who rallied armies against Viking axes, now waged a secret war against his own flesh. His spirit remained a fortress, unconquered, defiant, but his body betrayed him at every turn. During hunts, once a source of joy, the motion of riding stirred internal discomfort, forcing him to dismount early under the guise of scouting ahead. Feasts, symbols of royal abundance, turned treacherous. Rich meats and ales triggered episodes, sending him retreating to private quarters, where servants discreetly managed his care. Even battle preparations strained him. The weight of chainmail pressed on his weakened frame. Yet he led charges at Edington, his commands booming over the clash of shields, while pain twisted inside like a coiled serpent. Chroniclers noted his pallor during triumphs, attributing it to the rigors of war, never suspecting the internal siege. Foreign envoys arriving with gifts of Frankish wine marveled at his wisdom, but whispered of his weary gaze, unaware that nights were spent in prayer, begging for respite from a torment that no enemy could inflict. To conceal this decay, Alfred orchestrated an elaborate performance of kingship, turning vulnerability into veiled strength. Before his court, he moved with deliberate poise, excusing absences as times of reflection or divine communion. He surrounded himself with loyal scribes and advisors, dictating reforms from his chambers during difficult periods, transforming suffering into productivity. His law code, blending ancient justice with mercy, was born in such moments. Hours of discomfort fueling visions of a unified realm. Schools for young nobles sprang up, inspired by his own late literacy, as if educating others could defy his physical decline. Prayer became his shield. In Winchester's minster, he prostrated for hours, interpreting suffering as God's forge, tempering him for greater trials. He confided in few, perhaps only his closest kin, fearing that whispers of weakness could invite Viking raids or internal rebellions.
Rumors of the king's mysterious ailment circulated in hushed tones among nobles, but he quashed them with displays of vigor, hosting grand assemblies where he recited poetry flawlessly, his voice steady despite the storm within. The psychological toll was as brutal as the physical. Anxiety gnawed at him, like the disease itself, fear that an episode might strike during crucial moments, leaving Wessex exposed, dread that his heirs would inherit a fractured throne if he faltered. Depression crept in during periods of isolation, dark thoughts of divine punishment for past failures, but he channeled it into resolve. This trial I bear, he might have whispered in solitary vigils, shall not break me. It fueled his innovations. The burhs, those walled havens, weren't just defenses against Vikings, but symbols of enduring strength amid personal frailty. His navy, patrolling misty coasts, mirrored his own vigilance against internal collapse. Even family life suffered. His marriage produced children, but intimate moments were complicated by his condition, leaving emotional scars on those closest to him. As decades wore on, the decay deepened. By his 40s, periods of relief grew shorter, episodes more severe. Weight loss accelerated, his once muscular arms thinning to sinew and bone. Sleep evaded him, haunted by discomfort that jolted him awake. Sweat-soaked and gasping, daily tasks became battles. Eating provoked nausea, movement stirred pain. Yet he persisted, signing treaties and planning campaigns from shadowed halls. The signs of his condition sometimes showed, masked by herbal remedies tucked in his robes. Courtiers noticed his increasing need for privacy, attributing it to strategic genius rather than bodily betrayal. Vikings, sensing no weakness, respected the peace he enforced, unaware their greatest foe was crumbling from within. This hidden deterioration reshaped Alfred not into a broken man, but a legend forged in fire. His reforms, laws, learning, defenses, blossomed from suffering, turning personal torment into national triumph. Yet the cost mounted. A king who conquered invaders, but couldn't subdue his own body. A hero whose greatest victory was enduring in silence. The golden warrior of youth had become a vessel of decay, his iron will the only barrier against collapse. But as age advanced, even that will would be tested to its limits. For 20 years, Alfred had managed to contain his secret war to rule despite the deterioration within. But bodies, even royal ones, have limits, and in the autumn of 899, those limits would finally be reached. What began as familiar discomfort would escalate into something unimaginable. What began as familiar discomfort would escalate to something unimaginable. 30 days that would test not just a king's endurance, but the very boundaries of human suffering.
October 899. Dawn breaks over Winchester, the heart of Wessex, where stone walls and thatched roofs huddle against the autumn chill. Alfred, now 50, stirs in his royal chamber. But instead of rising to command, he lets out a deep groan that echoes through the timber halls. What starts as a familiar discomfort escalates into intense agony, a searing fire ripping through his abdomen, as if his innards are being torn asunder by invisible forces. Servants burst in, their faces ashen, finding their king doubled over on his bed, sweat drenching his linen shift despite the frost outside. This is no ordinary episode. This is the beginning of the end, a final assault from the disease that has haunted him for over 3 decades. Modern scholars point to Crohn's complications, perhaps a perforated bowel or sepsis, where infection floods the bloodstream, turning the body against itself. In Alfred's time, it's simply God's final trial, a torment that will consume him over the next weeks in a slow, agonizing descent toward death. The crisis unfolds day by day, a relentless march toward death that spares no mercy for England's greatest king. By October 10th, the pain has intensified beyond anything he's experienced. Severe cramps seizing his gut, forcing him to clench his fists until his knuckles turn white. His digestive system fails completely, alternating between painful blockages and uncontrollable episodes that leave him weak and dehydrated. Fever spikes, his skin burning to the touch, alternating with chills that rack his frame like autumn storms. Weakness spreads through his body, his legs buckle when he tries to stand, forcing him to be carried to council meetings on a litter. His once piercing eyes now clouded with pain. Nausea overwhelms him. Even sips of herbal broth are rejected, mixed with bile that leaves a metallic taste. His body, already weakened from years of illness, deteriorates further, skin sagging over bones, cheeks sinking into deep hollows, making him look like a shadow of his former self. Healers swarm like bees to a dying hive, their remedies a desperate barrage of futility. Potions from the ancient leech book, boiled roots and wine-infused herbs are offered, but they only provoke more distress, adding to his misery. Warm compresses applied to his belly offer momentary relief before the pain rebounds fiercer. Bloodletting resumes, leeches applied to his arms until he sways with weakness, his blood thin and dark. A foreign physician, perhaps from distant courts, suggests exotic treatments of crushed stones mixed with oils applied in thick layers that crack and flake, doing nothing but add to the indignity. Prayer vigils fill the minster. Monks chant psalms around the clock, incense smoke curling like spirits, while Alfred whispers confessions, fearing this agony is divine. Retribution for wars or unfulfilled vows. No relief exists from the constant torment. He endures fully aware, his mind sharp amid the chaos, trapped in a body that's become a prison of flesh and fire. Remarkably, Alfred clings to kingship even as death approaches. He summons advisors to his bedside, voice low but commanding, signing decrees with a trembling hand that smears ink across parchment. Military plans against lingering Viking threats are dictated through gritted teeth, his words punctuated by pauses for breath. He receives envoys propped on pillows, his pallor hidden under furs, discussing alliances while pain courses through him. Chroniclers record his final wisdom, reflections on learning, justice, and faith, penned in letters to his heirs. Do not forsake the books, he urges, his legacy a bulwark against the suffering. Nobles gather, awed by his resilience, some weeping at the sight of their England's darling, reduced to a shadow. Rumors spread beyond the walls, Vikings, hearing of the king's decline, testing borders. But Alfred's iron will holds the realm steady, his endurance a silent shield for Wessex. As October drags into its final days, the deterioration accelerates into nightmare. By the 20th, visible signs of infection appear on his skin, perhaps from poor circulation, or the diseases spread, requiring constant care from servants who struggle with the challenges of his condition. His breathing grows labored, chest heaving as complications affect his lungs. Each inhale a rasp like rustling leaves in a storm. Delirium sets in. Visions of Viking battles mix with heavenly calls, making him mutter prophecies in fevered dreams. He loses basic bodily functions entirely, requiring full-time care from devoted attendants. His limbs swell with retained fluid, skin stretching taut and shiny, while his abdomen shows clear signs of internal distress. Unconscious spells lengthen, hours where he lies still as death, only to jolt awake with cries that pierce the night, echoing through Winchester's streets and frightening the townsfolk. Foreign observers, drawn by tales of the great king's decline, arrive to witness what they call a royal martyrdom. A Frankish envoy writes of the somber spectacle, describing Alfred's condition as consumed by invisible flames. Monks document every moment, seeing it as saintly endurance, but the reality is raw human frailty. A man who saved a nation now unable to save himself. His family gathers, wife and children at bedside, their tears mixing with prayers as Alfred whispers farewells, his voice fading like an autumn wind. "I have fought the good fight," he rasps, echoing scripture, his final words a testament to unyielding spirit. On October 26, 899, the end comes at last. In the pre-dawn hush, Alfred's heart stutters, his body convulsing one final time before going still. No grand fanfare, just a quiet exhale in a room heavy with sorrow. The cause, likely sepsis from complications of his chronic illness, the disease claiming victory after years of siege. His body, weakened and marked by suffering, is prepared hastily, treated with herbs to preserve dignity, wrapped in fine linens for burial in Winchester's Old Minster. But even in death, irony pursues him. Over centuries, his remains are moved, first to a new minster in 903, then to Hyde Abbey in 1110. In 1539, during the dissolution of monasteries, the abbey is destroyed, graves disturbed. Prisoners digging foundations in 1788 scatter the remains. Today, Alfred's bones are lost, perhaps mingled in unmarked ground or vanished entirely. The king who built enduring defenses leaves no trace of his mortal shell, his legacy etched in history while his body dissolves into anonymity. This final torment strips away the myth. Alfred, the unvanquished hero, dies in prolonged agony, his divine trials culminating in human frailty. Yet his endurance inspires. Wessex thrives. England unites under his heirs. The great king forged in pain proves that true greatness lies not in the body, but in the unbreakable soul. So, there you have it, the tale of Alfred the Great, the warrior king hailed as England's darling, who forged a nation from Viking ashes, only to be consumed by a hidden torment that ravaged his body for decades. From the heroic youth who outwitted foes on battlefields and in books, to the man enduring gut-wrenching agony in silence, Alfred's life is a stark irony. The savior who united Anglo-Saxon realms couldn't conquer the enemy within his own flesh. Modern medicine reveals his suffering, likely Crohn's disease, could have been managed today with simple treatments, but in the 9th century, superstition and crude remedies doomed him to a slow, agonizing end, his bones lost to time's desecration. The ultimate lesson: absolute greatness is fragile, bound by human mortality. Alfred's legacy endures not in his decayed remains, but in the England he built. Laws, learning, and resilience, born from pain, power no matter how divine, bows to the body's betrayal. Thanks for joining this dive into history's dark side. If it shocked you, smash that like button and subscribe for more untold royal horrors. See you in the next revelation.